So if I'm being truly honest, I could spin only sock yarn and knit only handspun socks for the rest of my life. But I acknowledge that there's more to life than handspun socks, and that once in a while you might want to knit other projects from your handspun yarn. So here are all my favorite projects and patterns to show off your best handspun yarn with. Hi there, my name is Aimee Sher, and I am a knitting pattern designer, a spinner, and sometimes a weaver and sewist. I learned to spin in 2018, first on a drop spindle, then on a wheel, and then eventually I got another wheel, all of which I've documented here on this channel. I'll link some of the videos at the end if you're interested in the process of purchasing a wheel. But since then, I've built up quite a beautiful little pile of hand-spun, hand-dyed yarn. I definitely have a strong draw towards hand-dyed comb top braids. I purchase them, I spin them, and then sometimes I don't know what I am going to do with them. So as my little pile grows, I'm often looking for projects that I find inspiring and invigorating and that just make me want to knit it up quickly so that I can get these handspun yarns out of my cabinet and onto my body. While it's great to admire finished handspun skeins, it feels amazing to wear them. So today we're going to dive into all of my favorite projects that I've done using handspun yarn of this style. And also we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of projects I'm planning to knit in the future using my handspun yarns. Now I want to start out by saying that when you're a hand spinner, the world is your oyster and there's not really any limits. You can literally create any yarn that you can find commercially, except for probably like the caged yarns. But you can recreate almost anything and more. You can create yarns that you could never dream of in the commercial world. And that is part of the magic of handmaking and of spinning. But today we're going to focus specifically on one type of handspun yarn and the projects that we can use to knit those up. So today's video is highly specific. It is all about yarn that we've spun from beautiful hand-dyed braids of comb top on the market, and they end up looking kind of like this with like different color changes and stripes and gradients. You might have spun it straight from end to end in a gradient like I did here, or you might have done a fractal planning or any kind of other fiber preparation using comb tops like this. But more or less, there's gonna be some barber poling in many of these methods. There's going to be color changes that are quite abrupt. And at first, when I was a new spinner, I found it quite challenging to find projects that are suited for this, that gives a result I can predict for and plan for. So let's jump right into the projects that I've knit that I think have worked the best for this type of yarn. So like I said earlier, I could live the rest of my life just spinning and knitting handspun socks. So of course, that's the first thing I'm going to mention. So if you'll excuse me, here is a well-worn and well-loved handspun sock. I love socks because of the small circumference nature, and you'll see a few small circumference projects here just because they suit this type of yarn so well. I love the way the color changes and melts and shifts throughout the sock. I love that you can get really wild with colors and wear all kinds of colors. If you're the type of person who's not afraid of color in their garments and other accessories, I think that's really great. But from day to day, I kind of suffer from decision fatigue and I can't decide what to wear. There's too many bright options, so I tend to wear very neutral sweaters like this with single colors, but that's just me, and you do what brings you joy. But I find that a great way to add this type of yarn into my outfit without thinking too hard is socks. It's small, it's close to the ground, it doesn't really draw the eye too much, so I can go ham and wear all kinds of different colors that are on my feet. This is also why I love hand-dyed speckled yarn for my feet, not so much for my outfit because it's hard to put together outfits. In the mornings, I have 2 kids and I just don't have time to figure out where to put these colors, so feet is a great place for them. So this is one pair I've spun. I believe this fiber was from Wound Up Fiber Arts. Love their sock blend. One thing to watch out for when you are knitting socks from handspun yarn is that just like with commercial yarn on a superwash base, this is a superwash merino and nylon, the colors will show up very vividly like this and have really clear changes and stripes. That is great. Another option would be to spin from a non-superwash fiber, such as this 100% non-superwash BFL. The advantage of BFL is that it has a longer fiber length as well as slightly higher micron count, but it's still pretty nice for next to skin. I really enjoy a good BFL sock, whether it is superwash or non-superwash, but in this case, this is non-superwash. This is spun up from Wound Up Fiber Arts, and I love the way the colors are more muted and watercolory. I love that in handspun yarn, you can get this beautiful heathery look. So this one will have colors that show up more muted, not just because it's on non-superwash, but also because of the heathered BFL. This is a mixed BFL blend, which means that the base fiber had kind of like blacks, browns, grays in it mixed with the white. So it has these beautiful natural tones under the dye, which I find really interesting and really complex and makes for a great neutral. It kind of like tamps down any color you put on it and makes it kind of neutral-ish, which makes it very wearable, and I love that. So I think that handspun socks are a great low lift, kind of low investment way to find out how a color is going to pull or how your handspun colors are going to show up. In this case, just watch out in a non-superwash fiber, the dye, when it strikes the yarn or the fiber, it doesn't take up quite the same way. It takes a little longer to take up in the yarn or the fibers. So that means that your colors are going to be a little more blended. It means that speckles are not going to be as sharp and colors won't be as bright, and you'll end up with a more muted effect like this. I hope that you'll give socks a try. They're a great way to experiment with these things. We're going to circle back to small circumference knitting, but for now, let's move on to shawls. So here we have a shawl that I just found off late last year, and this is the Ziggy Triangle by Leila Raven. It is a small kind of bandana sized shawl, triangle shawl that's knit from side to side, and it's worked up using two contrasting yarns. You can go high contrast, you can go low contrast, and I find that the lace, which forms the zigzag, is so suitable for handspun yarn. You can knit it from end to end without breaking the yarn at all, which is certainly something we don't want to do when we're knitting with our handspun yarn, right? We want to preserve that yarn for as long as we can and waste nothing. And I just think the colors show up so beautifully. So many of Leila's patterns are so well suited for handspun yarn. I highly recommend this one. So this shawl is also very friendly to small amounts of handspun yarn. I knit up this entire shawl using less than 50 grams each of Pearl Soho good wool for the solid color, because I didn't feel like spinning up another solid color to match, and then 50 grams of sport weight nest fiber that I spun up. And with 2 skeins, you can make 2 full shawls. So I think that's a very economic way to use up your handspun. So often I spin exactly 4 ounces of fiber and that's it. So it's really great to find ways to use up just a small amount of fiber. So if you're a shawl knitter, or you like lace, or you just like watching the handspun unfurl and the color changes, I highly suggest you try the Ziggy Triangle by Leila Raven. It's such a great pattern, so well written, so clear. Please give that a try. This is probably one of my favorite projects I've ever made from handspun yarn. So like I said, most of my handspun yarns are in the Sport DK range. That's just kind of my default spin. I do them 2-ply, and they often have a lot of barber pulling because I like to spin them end to end. Spinning is a relaxing hobby for me, so I don't do a lot of color planning or fractal spinning or anything that really requires any type of prep or planning. I like to pick up the braid and spin it from end to end, and then I get stuck. What do I do with it? Next on my list is definitely the Hom Sweet Mittens. I think they're so beautiful, and the way that the color work is structured means that there's like an equal amount of visual interest. I think it's very easily flippable. You can use a gradient or fractal handspun yarn in either the background color or the contrast color, or spin them around. So because Alicia has worked up her mitts in these beautiful natural tones, I'm actually feeling quite inspired by that. I'm planning to knit up pairs using not only the hand-dyed style of like barber pulley handspun yarn that I showed earlier, contrasting with some plain yarn that I have either in my closet or I'll spin up something new for it. I'm also planning to do some in just plain roving that is undyed from my friends at Skagit Woolen Works. If you've been here for a while, then you'll have seen me talk about them before. I love their fiber. They have some beautiful undyed roving that is local to the Seattle area. So I highly recommend you also check them out. So as always, I'll have all the different dyers and pattern creators, designers. All of that information is going to be down below in the description box. So please take your time going through them. I hope that this is a helpful list for you. So the next project I want to share with you that I think is really lovely for hand-dyed comb tops turned into handspun yarn is one that you'll have seen often if you are a frequent visitor here. This pattern is called Clara's Playtime Mittens, and this is like my 6th or 7th pair. This is one of my own designs, and it's very plain. It is a stockinette mitten with a convertible backing. It is knit mostly in one piece. There's a bit where you work back and forth and attach it, the convertible top. And this yarn, I think, is one of my very first that I spun up on a wheel all the way back, like during lockdown. So in 2020. So I spun this a long time ago. I made some slippers out of it, and then I just left the rest. I think I had like 60 or 70 grams. So it was such a joy to finally work them up over the holidays. I love the colors, the subtle color changes, and the autumn colors are so beautiful, and the little convertible top is super practical. So there's a convertible flap in the hand and the thumb hole in the thumb so that I can still use my hands out and about, especially when I need to do payments at the grocery store or something like that, and I need my phone and my fingerprint. That's a very handy feature. So these are my finished Clara's Playtime Mittens. I think they're very flexible, and I don't mind if the colors don't line up, but it's pretty easy to line up if you would like them to line up. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. Clara's Playtime Mittens is also really yarn efficient. These took hardly any yarn at all. I've knit up a pair for my youngest, who's 3, and I think that a single skein of DK weight yarn can probably get you through like 2 pairs of kid ones or 1 pair of adult ones. So that's a great option if you have some DK weight yarn that's just laying around and you just want an easy project where you don't have to plan like color work for it basically. So along with socks, Clara's Playtime Mittens are kind of my go-to for this type of project when I have a bit of handspun yarn and I just want to use it up and get it on my body and wear it. This is a great one. I'm really looking forward to this. This is another spin using BFL fiber, and I really like the soft hand that it gives. It's definitely more rustic than merino and it takes getting used to, but I think it's worth it. So the next project I want to share is this now very sad laundry accident. But before we had a laundry accident, I'm going to show you its good side. This is the MAA Hat, and it is by Leila Raven. It is a sport weight pattern, and it has these beautiful mountain motif and color work. You can do a bolder contrast than I did, or you can do something like this. And it has this gorgeous little contrast Latvian braid as well. Not sure if you can see it, but there it is, this beautiful braid. Unfortunately, this has since had an accident while being washed, and it got stained by another project. And it has this like horrible highlighter yellow all over it. But I plan on knitting up another hat just because this is like literally my only hat. That is not a design sample that I can wear out and about, so I've been wearing it anyway. But I definitely need to knit another one. I think this is a great pairing with the Ziggy Triangle that I showed earlier. It is also very yarn efficient, uses up just a little bit. You can actually knit a coordinating Mauna hat with the Ziggy shawl, and that's actually my plan. I'm going to use the leftover yarn that I have from that project and make another Mauna hat. So I know that is 2 Leila Raven patterns, but her patterns are honestly so good for handspun yarns. So I hope that you'll give that a try. I think the Latvian braid is such a fun little technique, and it's such a great way to show off your handspun yarn. And again, I used a commercial sport weight yarn for the main color and then used a handspun for the contrast color. I tend to do that a lot just because I'm really lazy and don't want to spin another yarn to match. So I think that there's no rules. If you want to spin another yarn to match, that you do you. And if you're lazy like me, these projects are still suitable for that. It's a great way to just explore and play without worrying too much. And finally, I want to quickly plug my upcoming pattern, the Directional Pullover. So while I designed this using sample yarn sent to me by a farm up in Canada called Hinterland Yarn, using their own homegrown alpaca, I also really was thinking about knitters like myself who also spin when designing this pattern. I have been spinning now for 6 years and I have not yet successfully planned and spun a sweater project. This is just because I have the worst attention span of all time, and the thought of such a long-standing project stresses me out. And I just can't seem to find the motivation to even get started. I actually haven't even made an attempt. So if you're like me and you find sweater spinning incredibly overwhelming and you want to dip your toe in, I think the contrast color for a colorwork sweater like this could be a really good way to start. I have had some testers work on this pattern who have like a gradient kind of yarn for the contrast color, and it's so beautiful. I highly recommend that you give it a try. This pattern will be coming out next week on February 8th, and I hope you all give it a try if you're into sweater spinning. I think this is a good one. So in the last quarter, I've seen so many people get into spinning for the first time, so many knitting friends learning to spin, and I'm honestly so excited to have you all join us in this world. I hope you found this video entertaining and helpful, and that you found a project that inspires you for your next spinning project. I'd love to know what you're planning on knitting with your spinning next. Please share all your thoughts with me and any pattern recommendations you have. And if you'd like to find out more about the spinning wheel purchasing process and things that I kind of wish I knew before I bought my first spinning wheel, I will link that video over here so that you can go and check that out. If you like this video, I hope that you'll give it a like and you'll subscribe to my video to see more videos like this. And until next time, thank you for watching and have a great day.